The quantum resonance chamber hummed its familiar tune as Elena Vasquez guided the molecular scrubber across the scarred breastplate of Commander Thorne's combat suit. Each pass revealed fresh battle damage plasma burns that spiraled in impossible geometric patterns, microfractures that seemed to pulse with residual energy from whatever hellish skirmish had occurred on Kepler 438b. "Another day, another dent," she muttered, pulling up the diagnostic hologram that mapped the armor's structural integrity. Red zones blinked like angry Christmas lights across the chest and left shoulder assembly. "What did you do this time, Commander? Try to headbutt a particle cannon." The armory aboard the Nexus Dawn stretched before her like a metallic cathedral. Row upon row of empty armor stands waiting for their occupants to return from whatever cosmic chess game the Admiralty was playing this week. Elena had been tending to this mechanical congregation for 3 years now, and she'd learned to read the stories written in scratched titanium and burnt ceramic plating. Her workbench chimed, and a holographic message materialized above the commander's helmet. "Maintenance request, Priority 7. Quantum flux stabilizers showing degradation patterns inconsistent with standard combat protocols. Please advise, K. Thorne." Elena raised an eyebrow. Priority 7 meant non-urgent, but Thorne never filed non-urgent requests. The man treated his armor like a religious artifact, which made sense considering it was the only thing standing between him and whatever cosmic nightmares lurked in the dark between stars. "Quantum flux stabilizers," she mused, calling up the technical schematics. "Fancy way of saying the glowy bits aren't glowing right." The armory's main entrance hissed open, and Lyra's distinctive silhouette appeared in the doorway. The communications officer's elongated ears twitched as she processed the electromagnetic chatter that constantly flooded the ship's communication arrays, a nervous habit that Elena found endearing. "Working late again." Lyra approached with 2 steaming cups of what the mess hall optimistically called coffee, but which Elena suspected was actually recycled hydraulic fluid with caffeine supplements. "The armor doesn't fix itself," Elena accepted the cup gratefully. "Though at this point I'm starting to think it might be trying to. Look at this." She gestured to the holographic readout floating above Thorne's suit. The quantum signature patterns danced in 3-dimensional space, showing energy flows that defied standard physics textbooks. Lyra's ears perked up literally. "That's interesting. The resonance frequencies are almost identical to the ones we've been intercepting from the Zephyr system. The mysterious signal everyone's been buzzing about. The very same. Though between you and me, I think mysterious is just military speak for we have no idea what we're dealing with, but we're going to poke it with sticks anyway." Elena laughed, nearly choking on her coffee. "You've been hanging around humans too long. That's exactly the kind of brilliant tactical thinking that got us into 3 wars with species we hadn't even discovered yet. Hey, at least we're consistent." Lyra's ears drooped slightly as she studied the readouts more carefully. "Elena, this energy signature, it's not just similar to what we're picking up from Zephyr. It's identical, down to the quantum level." A chill ran down Elena's spine that had nothing to do with the armory's climate control. "You're saying that whatever's out there in the Zephyr system is somehow connected to Thorne's armor?" "I'm saying that either we have the most incredible coincidence in galactic history, or your commander has been getting up close and personal with forces that make black holes look like birthday candles." Before Elena could respond, the armory's secondary entrance whispered open. Commander Cale Thorne stepped inside, his usual confident stride slightly stiff from whatever had earned his armor its latest collection of exotic battle scars. He was out of uniform, wearing standard ship casuals that made him look less like a legendary warrior and more like someone's tired older brother. "Ms. Vasquez," he nodded to Elena, then to Lyra. "Communications Officer Lyra." "Commander," Elena straightened automatically, though she caught herself before falling into a full formal posture. "Your flux stabilizers are showing some interesting patterns." Thorne's expression didn't change, but Elena had learned to read the subtle shifts in his posture over countless equipment checks. His shoulders tensed slightly, barely perceptible unless you knew what to look for. "Define interesting." Lyra stepped forward, her diplomatic training taking over. "The energy signatures match readings we've been monitoring from the Zephyr system. It suggests exposure to whatever's generating those signals." "I see." Thorne moved to his armor stand, running his fingers along the quantum-scarred breastplate with something approaching tenderness. How long until repairs are complete? Elena consulted her diagnostic pad. Depends on what you consider acceptable risk levels. I can have the basic structural integrity restored in 6 hours, but those quantum anomalies are going to need specialized attention. Maybe 18 hours for a full restoration to factory specifications. And how long for adequate combat readiness? The question hung in the air like a loaded weapon. Elena felt Lyra's pointed ears twitch as the communications officer picked up on the subtext that Elena was only beginning to grasp. "Commander," Elena said carefully, "adequate combat readiness assumes I know what you're planning to fight. These energy patterns suggest you're dealing with something that exists partially outside normal space-time. Standard combat protocols might not apply." A ghost of a smile touched Thorne's lips. "They rarely do." He reached into his pocket and withdrew a small crystalline object that pulsed with soft blue light. "I found this embedded in the armor's primary matrix. Thought you should see it before I file my mission report." Elena accepted the crystal, immediately feeling a strange, tingling sensation as it made contact with her skin. The object was warm, almost alive, and seemed to resonate with the quantum flux patterns still dancing in the holographic display. "Commander," she said slowly, "this isn't from any known mineral database. Where exactly did you encounter this? Classified location, classified circumstances, but I thought you should know what you're working with." Lyra's ears were practically vibrating now. "Commander, with respect, if Elena's going to repair equipment that's been exposed to unknown quantum forces, she needs more than classified to work with. These energy patterns could be dangerous." Thorne's expression softened slightly as he looked at Elena. "You're right, of course. The mission took us to a derelict structure in the outer Zephyr system, pre-contact architecture, possibly millions of years old. This crystal was part of a larger formation that seemed to be. Alive isn't the right word. Aware might be more accurate." Elena felt the crystal pulse in her palm, and for a moment she could have sworn she heard something like distant music, complex harmonies that seemed to bypass her ears entirely and resonate directly in her mind. "Okay," she said, setting the crystal carefully on her workbench. "That's officially above my pay grade, but I'll do what I can with the armor. Just promise me you'll be careful out there, Commander. Whatever this is, it's playing by rules we don't understand yet." Thorne studied her for a long moment, and Elena felt an unexpected flutter of something that definitely wasn't professional concern. "I'll be careful," he said quietly. "I have good reasons to come back in one piece." After he left, Lyra turned to Elena with a knowing expression that made her ears look even more pronounced. "You know," she said casually, "in Etherian culture, when a warrior shares unknown artifacts with their armor keeper, it's considered a significant gesture of trust." Elena felt her cheeks warm. "It's just professional courtesy. He needs me to know what I'm working with." And the way he looked at you when he promised to be careful. Also professional courtesy. "Your species really needs to mind its own business more." Lyra grinned. Where's the fun in that? 3 days had passed since the crystal incident, and Elena thought she was getting used to the strange dreams. Visions of impossible geometries and singing metals had become her nightly entertainment, though she wasn't entirely convinced they were dreams anymore. Especially not when she woke up with equations scrawled on her notepad in handwriting that definitely wasn't hers. "Computer, run diagnostic sequence 17 on Commander Thorne's left gauntlet assembly," she called out to the armory's AI system while carefully avoiding looking at the notepad. Some mysteries were better left for after coffee. "Diagnostic complete. Anomalous reading detected in the neural interface matrix." Elena's coffee cup paused halfway to her lips. "Define anomalous." "The neural interface contains foreign material of unknown composition. Material appears to be organic in nature, but exhibits technological properties." "Organic and technological." Elena set down her cup and pulled up the holographic scan. "That's like saying something is wet and dry at the same time." The scan revealed something that made her stomach do uncomfortable gymnastics. Embedded within the gauntlet's neural mesh was what looked like a piece of living circuitry, threads of silver that pulsed with their own internal rhythm, growing through the quantum matrix like some kind of high-tech moss. "Oh, fantastic. Now we're dealing with cybernetic fungus." The armory door chimed, and Lyra practically bounced through the entrance, her ears twitching with barely contained excitement. "Elena, you need to see what we intercepted from the long-range sensors. It's about those energy signatures we've been tracking, and it's..." She stopped mid-sentence, staring at the holographic display. What in the seven systems is that? That, my pointy-eared friend, is what happens when alien technology decides to play house in our equipment. The commander's gauntlet has apparently adopted some kind of living circuit. Lyra moved closer, her expression shifting from excitement to concern. Elena, this isn't just living circuitry. These patterns, I've seen them before. Where? In my grandmother's medical texts. She was a xenobiologist before the Etherian integration. These structures look identical to neural tissue from the Vashti collective. Elena felt the temperature in the armory drop several degrees. The Vashti. The species that went extinct 3 million years ago. Those Vashti. The very same. Except according to every textbook in the known galaxy, they never developed this kind of biotechnology. Their civilization was purely organic, no synthetic elements at all. Well, either the textbooks are wrong, or we're dealing with something that learned to imitate 3 million-year-old brain tissue. Elena pulled up the material analysis subroutines. Computer, compare the organic matrix in the gauntlet to known Vashti neural patterns. Comparison complete. Match probability, 97.4%. Lyra's ears drooped. Okay, so either we've discovered that the Vashti faked their own extinction and have been secretly developing cyber-organic technology for 3 million years, or something else has been wearing their neurological patterns like a disguise. I vote for option 3. The universe has officially run out of normal problems and is now just messing with us for entertainment. The secondary entrance hissed open, and Commander Thorne entered carrying his helmet under one arm. Elena noticed he was favoring his left hand slightly, the same hand that would interface with the infected gauntlet. Ms. Vasquez, I need to report some unusual sensory feedback from yesterday's mission. Let me guess, Elena gestured to the holographic display. Phantom sensations in your left hand, maybe some memories that aren't quite yours. Thorne stopped, his expression shifting to something between surprise and relief. You know what's happening. I know what's happening to your equipment. Whether I know what's happening to you is a different question entirely. Lyra stepped forward, her diplomatic instincts taking over. Commander, we've identified organic material in your gauntlet's neural interface. It appears to be based on Vashti neurological structures. The extinct species. Apparently not as extinct as advertised, Elena said dryly. Either that or something else has been studying their homework very carefully. Thorne set his helmet on the workbench and flexed his left hand experimentally. The sensations started during our reconnaissance of the second artifact site. We found what appeared to be a crashed vessel, but the architecture was organic. Living walls, corridors that seemed to reshape themselves as we moved through them. Please tell me you didn't touch anything. I touched everything. It's what reconnaissance teams do. Elena threw her hands up in exasperation. Commander, has anyone ever explained the concept of unknown alien technology to you? The part where it might be dangerous. Frequently, usually right before I ignore the advice and complete the mission anyway. Lyra snorted with laughter. I'm starting to understand why Elena spends so much time repairing your equipment. It's not funny, Elena protested, though she was fighting back a smile. One of these days he's going to bring back something that turns his armor into a toaster or worse. A toaster might be an improvement, Thorne said with unexpected humor. At least then I'd be useful at breakfast. Elena felt that familiar flutter again, and firmly told her cardiovascular system to mind its own business. Commander, we need to remove this material before it spreads to other systems, but I'm not sure how to approach it without potentially damaging the neural interface. What if we don't remove it? Both women stared at him. Hear me out, Thorne continued. This material seems to be enhancing the sensory feedback rather than degrading it. During the mission, I could sense structural weaknesses in the alien vessel that weren't visible to standard sensors. It was like having a second set of instincts. Commander, Lyra said carefully, enhanced instincts sound appealing, but we're talking about neural tissue from a species that disappeared 3 million years ago. We have no idea what their psychological patterns might do to a human mind. Or what a human mind might do to them, Elena added. This could be a two-way street. You might be changing this material as much as it's changing you. Thorne considered this, unconsciously flexing his left hand again. The sensations aren't unpleasant, more like remembering something I never learned. That's terrifying, Elena said flatly, or fascinating. Terrifyingly fascinating. The worst kind. Lyra's ears twitched suddenly and she pulled out her communication device. Sorry, priority message from the bridge. Her expression grew serious as she read. I need more coffee, Elena muttered. A lot more coffee, possibly intravenously. Lyra patted her shoulder sympathetically. Look on the bright side. If this goes horribly wrong, at least we'll have front row seats to the most interesting first contact scenario in galactic history. Your optimism is deeply disturbing. It's an Etherian trait. We find disaster much more manageable when we're looking forward to the stories we'll tell afterward. Elena looked at the organic circuits pulsing in perfect synchronization with Commander Thorne's heartbeat and wondered if some stories were better left untold. The Nexus Dawn shuddered as it dropped out of hyperspace, and Elena's coffee mug decided to take a brief flying lesson across the armory. She caught it mid-flight with reflexes that definitely hadn't existed before her recent encounters with alien technology. That's new, she muttered, staring at her own hand in surprise. What's new? Lyra emerged from behind the quantum calibration array, her ears slightly singed from what appeared to be an electrical mishap. I just caught a flying coffee mug without looking. Either I've developed superhuman reflexes, or that crystal has been more influential than we thought. Please tell me you're not developing alien superpowers. The paperwork alone would be a nightmare. The ship's intercom crackled to life. All department heads to the bridge. We have a situation. Elena and Lyra exchanged glances. In their experience, situation was military code for something has gone spectacularly wrong, but we're trying to sound professional about it. They made their way through corridors filled with crew members moving with a purposeful urgency that preceded either brilliant tactical maneuvers or complete disasters. Elena had learned to tell the difference by watching the expressions brilliant maneuvers produced focused determination, while disasters produced the kind of forced cheerfulness that suggested everyone was trying very hard not to panic. The bridge buzzed with controlled chaos. Captain Martinez stood before the main view screen, her expression suggesting she was personally offended by whatever the universe had decided to throw at them today. Ah, Ms. Vasquez, Officer Lyra. Perfect timing. She gestured to the view screen, which displayed what could charitably be described as impossible. The Zephyr system stretched before them, but it looked nothing like the star charts had promised. Instead of 3 planets orbiting a standard G-class star, they were looking at what appeared to be a vast mechanical flower. Massive structures extended from a central hub like metallic petals, each one the size of a small moon and pulsing with the same blue energy they'd seen in Thorne's crystal. Captain, Elena said carefully, please tell me those structures were in the original survey reports. They were not. According to our instruments, they appeared approximately 6 hours ago, all at once. Commander Thorne stood at the tactical station, his left hand resting on the interface panel. Elena noticed that where his skin made contact with the controls, faint blue patterns were spreading across the surface like digital veins. Commander, she called out, you might want to step away from the controls. Thorne looked down at his hand, watching the blue patterns spread with more curiosity than concern. Interesting. The ship's systems seemed to be responding to the same frequency signatures as my gauntlet. That's terrifying, Elena said automatically. Or useful, Captain Martinez interjected. Commander, are you experiencing any additional sensory input through the connection? Thorne's expression grew distant. The structures aren't hostile, they're curious, like a massive neural network trying to understand what we are. Lyra's ears perked up sharply. Commander, you're describing conscious contact with an alien intelligence. That's either the most significant breakthrough in xenological history or the prelude to total mental assimilation. Both options sound delightful, Elena muttered. The view screen shifted as the ship's sensors focused on the nearest structure. The surface revealed itself to be covered in intricate patterns that seemed to shift and flow like living circuitry. Elena felt an uncomfortable familiarity as she recognized similar patterns to what had infected Thorne's armor. Captain, the navigation officer called out, we're receiving a transmission, but it's not coming through our communication arrays. Where is it coming from? Commander Thorne, ma'am. Everyone turned to stare at Thorne, who looked as surprised as anyone else. I'm not transmitting anything. Sir, with respect, you are. Your neural implant is broadcasting on 17 different frequencies simultaneously. Elena felt the pieces clicking together in her mind, like a particularly ominous puzzle. The organic material in your gauntlet isn't just Vashti neural tissue. It's a communication interface. You've become a living transmitter. That explains the sudden improvement in my reflexes, Thorne said with remarkable calm for someone who had just discovered he was broadcasting alien signals. And mine, Alina added reluctantly. I think proximity to the infected equipment is creating secondary effects. Lyra pulled out her scanner and swept it over both of them. You're both showing quantum resonance patterns similar to what we detected in the original crystal. Alina, when did you last handle Commander Thorne's equipment directly? This morning, during the standard maintenance cycle. Without protective gloves, Alina felt her stomach sink. The material seemed harmless. It was just sitting there looking mysterious and pulsing ominously. What could go wrong? Famous last words, Captain Martinez observed. Ms. Vasquez, Officer Lyra, I need you to determine if this connection can be controlled or severed safely. Commander, I need you to find out what these structures want. How exactly do I do that? Thorne asked. You're the one with the alien neural interface. Improvise. Thorne placed his left hand fully on the tactical console, and the blue patterns immediately spread across the entire surface. The view screen flickered, and suddenly they were looking at the interior of one of the massive structures. The space was vast and organic, with walls that pulsed like the inside of some enormous heart. Streams of light flowed through conduits that resembled both technological circuits and biological nervous systems. Okay, Alina said slowly, that's either beautiful or absolutely terrifying. Why not both? Lyra suggested helpfully. A voice emerged from the ship's speakers, but it wasn't quite a voice. It was more like the memory of a voice, layered with harmonics that seemed to bypass the ears entirely and resonate directly in their minds. We remember the walking forms, the small spirits that touched our sleeping places. Alina blinked. Are they talking about us? We think the ancient patterns have returned, but you are new-made, different-shaped. Why do you carry the sleeping songs? Thorne's expression grew thoughtful. I think they're referring to the Vashti, the neural patterns they recognize. We kept the final dreams when the walking forms chose silence. We have been alone with their memories for many cycles. Captain Martinez stepped forward. Can you ask them what happened to the Vashti? Thorne concentrated, and Alina watched the blue patterns on the console pulse in rhythm with his heartbeat. They didn't go extinct. They chose to merge with their technology. These structures are the result, a civilization that became its own infrastructure. So we're talking to the evolved descendants of the Vashti species, Lyra said, her ears twitching with excitement. They're living cities. We offer sharing. The lonely songs grow stronger when joined with new voices. Alina felt a sudden chill of understanding. They want to merge with us too. That's what the neural material is for. It's not infection, it's an invitation. An invitation to become part of a 3-million-year-old alien collective consciousness, Alina clarified. Hard pass. We do not force the joining, but the small spirit carrying our songs will change regardless. The patterns seek completion. Thorne looked at his left hand, where the blue patterns were now visible beneath his skin. How long do I have? The songs grow stronger with each sun cycle. Soon the small spirit will hear all voices as we do. Alina grabbed Thorne's arm. We're getting you back to the medical bay right now. Alina, Thorne's voice was gentle but firm. Running medical scans isn't going to solve this, but maybe we don't need to solve it. Commander, you're talking about voluntarily joining an alien collective. That's not a career change, that's a species change. What if it's not permanent? What if the connection can be controlled rather than severed? Lyra's ears drooped thoughtfully. In Etherian philosophy, there's a concept called temporary unity, joining consciousness briefly for specific purposes while maintaining individual identity. Your species has a philosophy for everything, doesn't it? It helps pass the time. The alien voice returned, now carrying what sounded almost like amusement. The long-eared small spirit speaks wisdom. The joining can be chosen, not commanded. We have been alone long enough to value the choice of solitude. Alina looked around the bridge at the faces of people who were seriously considering making first contact through voluntary alien neural modification. I need a drink, she announced. A big one, possibly several. The mission parameters just changed, Captain Martinez said calmly. We're no longer just exploring ancient ruins. We're negotiating the first voluntary human-alien consciousness interface in recorded history. And if it goes wrong, then we'll have learned something valuable about what not to do next time. Elena stared at the pulsing blue patterns spreading slowly up Thorne's arm, and wondered when her simple job of fixing armor had turned into facilitating interspecies telepathic diplomacy. I definitely don't get paid enough for this. The emergency klaxons had been wailing for 17 minutes when Elena realized that the laws of physics had officially given up on the Nexus Dawn. She was standing in an armory that was somehow larger inside than outside, watching Commander Thorne's armor repair itself while pocket dimensions opened and closed like cosmic hiccups around them. Lyra, she called to her friend, who was currently standing on what used to be the ceiling. Please tell me this is normal for alien consciousness merging. Define normal, Lyra replied, her ears twitching as she monitored communications from 17 different realities simultaneously. Because if normal includes the ship's corridor system rearranging itself into a four-dimensional pretzel, then yes, this is completely routine. The alien structures surrounding the ship had activated something called a reality harmonization matrix, which Elena had initially thought sounded pleasant, until she realized it meant that space and time were now following alien rules instead of human ones. The result was that the armory existed in several states simultaneously, and Elena's workbench kept trying to occupy the same space as yesterday's lunch. "Commander," she called to Thorne, who was sitting against his armor stand, his left arm now completely blue with neural pathways that pulsed in harmony with the alien structures. "How are you feeling?" "Like I'm remembering the dreams of a civilization I never met," he replied with remarkable calm, for someone whose nervous system was apparently hosting a 3 million-year-old alien consciousness. "Also, I can see the mathematical structure underlying reality, which explains why your coffee mug has been achieving impossible trajectories all week." That's either the most romantic thing anyone's ever said to me, or the most terrifying. "Why not both?" Elena laughed despite everything, then immediately grabbed the workbench as another wave of reality distortion swept through the armory. When it passed, she found herself standing in a space that looked like the original armory but felt like the inside of a living organism. "Elena." Thorne's voice was softer now, more vulnerable than she'd ever heard it. "I need to tell you something before this goes any further. If you're about to confess that you're actually an ancient alien consciousness wearing human skin, I'm going to need that drink I mentioned earlier." Nothing that dramatic. He stood slowly, the blue patterns in his arm pulsing brighter. "I've been trying to find the right way to say this for months, but military protocol and professional boundaries kept getting in the way." Elena felt her heart do something complicated as the armory around them shimmered between dimensions. "Commander." "Kale, my name is Kale." He stepped closer, and Elena could see her own reflection in his eyes, multiplied across several possible realities. "Elena, you take care of my armor like it's the most important thing in the universe. You know every scratch, every repair, every modification. You treat that equipment with more attention and care than most people give to their families." "It's my job." "No, it's not." The blue patterns had reached his shoulder now, and Elena could hear faint harmonies that seemed to come from his very bones. "Your job is maintenance. What you do is devotion. And I've been watching you work, thinking about how you clean and repair and improve everything you touch, and I realized something." Another reality wave passed through them, and suddenly Elena was seeing Thorne's memories overlaid on her vision moments when he'd watched her work. Conversations where he'd found excuses to linger in the armory. The careful way he'd started leaving small gifts with his armor for her to find. "I clean your armor because it keeps you safe," she said quietly, "and I come back because you're here." He reached out with his right hand, the one still fully human, and touched her face gently. "Elena, why don't you treat me like your wife?" Elena blinked. "What?" "Wrong pronoun," he said quickly, a flush creeping up his neck. "I meant, why don't you treat me the way you'd want to be treated by someone who—" He stopped, took a breath. "I'm making a mess of this." Elena felt something warm and bright bloom in her chest. "Are you asking me to take care of you the way I take care of your armor?" "I'm asking you to take care of me the way someone takes care of the person they love." The words hung in the air between them as the alien structure's harmonization matrix reached critical resonance. Reality folded in on itself, creating a pocket of stability around Alina and Thorn, while chaos reigned beyond the armory's walls. Alina looked at this man who had just confessed his love while his nervous system was being rewritten by alien technology, in an armory that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously, during what was possibly the end of conventional spacetime. "You know what?" she said, stepping closer to him. "I've been scared to death that you were going to get yourself killed out there, and scared to death that I cared too much about someone who considers acceptable risk to be anything short of certain annihilation. And now I realize that if you're crazy enough to fall in love with your armor technician during an alien consciousness merger, then maybe I'm crazy enough to fall in love with someone whose idea of a romantic gesture is letting ancient neural parasites rewire his brain." Thorn laughed, and the sound harmonized with the alien frequencies in a way that made the pocket dimensions around them stabilize. "So that's a yes. That's a yes to taking care of you. The alien consciousness thing, we're going to have to figure out as we go." Alina reached out and took his left hand, the one pulsing with alien neural pathways. The moment their skin made contact, she felt the full weight of the alien collective consciousness, not invasive or overwhelming, but curious and welcoming. She could sense the vast loneliness of beings who had outlived their own bodies, and their joy at finding new minds to share their songs with. But she could also feel Thorn's presence, distinctly human and stubbornly individual even as the alien patterns spread through his nervous system. He wasn't being consumed or replaced. He was becoming a bridge between two very different kinds of consciousness. "Computer," she called out, her voice carrying new harmonics that made the ship's AI respond with unprecedented clarity. "Initiate quantum stabilization protocol 7. Synchronize with my neural patterns." "Alina," Lyra called from somewhere that might have been the floor or possibly next Thursday. "What are you doing?" "My job. I maintain equipment, I solve problems, and I keep people safe." Alina felt the alien neural patterns spreading into her own nervous system, but instead of fear, she felt a strange sense of completion. "And apparently, I negotiate interspecies consciousness treaties." The reality distortions began to settle, as Alina's technical knowledge merged with the alien collective's understanding of quantum mechanics. She could see how to stabilize the harmonization matrix, how to create a controlled interface that would allow voluntary connection without forced assimilation. "The joining can be temporary or permanent," she announced to the ship's crew through newly awakened telepathic channels. "Individual choice maintained. Think of it as consciousness networking with really good privacy settings." Captain Martinez's voice came through both the intercom and their mental link. "Ms. Vasquez, are you saying you've successfully negotiated a safe first contact protocol while declaring your feelings for Commander Thorn?" "Multitasking," Alina replied. "It's what I do." The armory stabilized around them, looking like itself again, but feeling somehow larger and more connected to the rest of the universe. Thorn's hand was still blue with neural pathways, but the patterns had stopped spreading and now pulsed in rhythm with Alina's heartbeat rather than his own. "So," Lyra said, dropping down from what was definitely the ceiling this time, "crisis resolved, first contact achieved, and romantic tension finally addressed. I'd call this a successful day." "I'd call it a Tuesday," Alina replied, then kissed Thorn properly while the alien collective sang harmonies of approval in the background of their minds. Later, after the reports were filed and the negotiations completed, Alina found herself back in the armory, working on armor that now repaired itself but still needed human intuition.